Good afternoon, everyone. I'm Jerome Mansalan, and I'll be presenting to you the fourth part of our ramp-up series. This is about the presentation layer. This is a two-part presentation. I'll be doing the first half, mainly on the introduction to the Windows technologies on presentation, and I'll be drilling down into Windows Forms, while Alan, after me, will be going into WPF and Silverlight technologies. Okay. So to start off, as you know, design GUIs are hard. Although we all like to design GUIs, I think it's a simple job, but we don't really think about the repercussions of the GUIs that we do. Okay. Well, here's an example. So whoever designed that movie, Minority Report, didn't really think how actual users would react to it. You know, people who are sitting all day don't have the upper body strength to use the interface. So anyway, so as you know, developers are kind of hard-headed. Okay, we'll do the user interface anyway. Okay, you end up things with like this. Okay. As a developer design UI, okay, or something like this, okay, or like that. You know, you just put all the functions on one form. Okay, just get the job done, or something like this. Okay, you guys, sounds familiar? Okay, so how does exactly .NET help us with that? No? Let's look at the technologies we have for .NET. So you have some options here. You have Windows Forms. So it's really for creating native-looking Windows applications. And one of its strong points is that, well, you already have the Windows controls there. And if not, you can easily create controls and also use third-party controls. So the developer's job is mainly just to use those controls. And you also have Silverlight or WPF, which is much better in terms of the design, UI design. It presents you rich UIs with the SAML. I think that will be discussed later. And again, one of the benefits is that the designer can take care of the GUI and then you let the programmer take care of the backend. And you have, of course, ASP.NET, where you have HTML and then code behind. So again, you have a separation of the design from the code. So I would say the main drivers in the development of presentation layer technologies is twofold. One, of course, is to make the GUI look better. So you have Silverlight and all these things. But the other motivation is really to separate the design work from the guy doing the code. Okay. So as a, for the coding guy, what does he actually do? Well, his job is to first show the data to the view, to the user. Okay, show the data there. Input form, first name, last name, address, and all that. Okay, and the formatting also goes there. You have a date, you need to show it in the proper format, currency, like that. And of course, you need to handle events. So the user clicks OK or save or cancel, and what do you do? So you need to put the logic there. Of course, validation goes into that as well. I didn't put it here, but parsing as well. So you check if the user put in the right email address. How do you interpret the date? Is it monthly, year, and all that? Okay. Then you would do some work maybe on asynchronous event handling, so that the UI doesn't get stuck. If you click a button, it takes a long time. How do you handle that? And of course, you need to make things easier for the UI guy. So you put in places where the UI guy can do his work. So you put in a label or a picture box where the UI guy can put his images and text. Okay. And then on the other guy, the UI guy, so he'll do the multimedia stuff. He'll do the layouts, the styles. If you really want to enhance your applications, so with Windows Forms, you can have your controls. You can do your own drawing using GDI. or DirectX even. That's not something you can do easily in VB6. So in Windows Forms, you can do your own drawings. That API is easily accessible to you. Before, with pre.NET, you'd have to do Visual C++ to really get into how Windows draws its Windows. Draws its Windows, yes. But with Windows Forms, all those objects are now in .NET, so you can easily access them. Even if you're just coding C# or VB.NET. Then WPF, you have these enhanced controls, styles, images, and then multimedia controls already built in. Resources, so you can separate the resources of the application, meaning like text, images, and other design elements or UI elements from the actual code. So you can give that to the UI guy, or for example, you're doing a localized application in several languages. You would have a different resource files for different languages. So for French maybe, or Chinese, or Filipino even, you can do that. And of course, be nice to the code guy. So you see the cooperation between the two. Okay, now that we discussed that, there's really two sides to the presentation thing. Just like the more of the coding guys thing and then the design guys thing. So a certain methodologies or a certain frame of thinking has developed in terms of how we structure applications. I think in the last presentations, you've heard about end-tier design. So you have your data access, your business layer, and representation. And then you have your model. But here, you can see there's actually three things going on. It's not just model and view. There's a thing called a view model, which is useful in some cases. So let's see here. So for example, you have a customer. So let's say you have these fields here: ID, first name, last name, and the birthday. Okay. So that's how your data looks like in your database. Okay. And then you have your data access, which is just responsible for saving it. Okay. On the other hand, you have your UI on the other side. Okay. So you're presenting your data. But here, we introduce a middle layer here. So it's a customer view model. So it's a model of what the user sees, but not in physically. No, not without the font. You use Comic Sans, whatever, and whatever colors you want to put there. That's not there. So it's really a logical view of what the user sees or views, and the behaviors of the user interface itself. Okay, so like logically speaking, you have a form, then probably you can save the customer. So that's an example of a view model. You notice that the fields here on view model are a bit different from the customer model. So let's say you have age. You can calculate the age from the birth date, of course. But in the data model, you don't really store that. It's really for the benefit of the view. It's not part of the model, the data model, but it's part of the view model because it is a data that the user sees, information that the user sees. Another example will be full name. You have first name and last name, but you also want to show the full name maybe to the user. Do you put in first name space last name? Do you show last name comma first name? So what's the format there? So that is no longer part of the data model per se, but it's really how you view the data. So that's part of the view model. So what are the advantages of this kind of model? It's hard to test user interfaces. Okay, in order for you to do that, you'll have to like click open forms, and then you'll have to do some kind of automation with the mouse and keyboard. But if you just take the model and then the view model, these are just code. So you can do unit tests, code-based unit tests, and you can test your code with just view model and model. So you kind of test the UI part as well. We just leaves you with the actual presentation on the view side. On the other hand, the UI guy can just work with the view model and the model itself, and doesn't really care how the data gets loaded, where it's coming from. You can work with the view model and the model. So it's a separation of concerns here. Okay, but mainly I'll do first a demo of Windows Forms. How many of you are doing Windows Forms development right now? Okay, some. Okay, others are still considering it. They're still okay. So let's take that into consideration okay. So I'm gonna make an address book application. Okay, I'm using the NHibernate data object relational mapper. So I've got some code here that already loads my data from NHibernate. Okay, let me show you my data. Okay, so I've got some test data here at this book, nothing fancy, just 3 records. Okay, and later if we have time, we can discuss the NHibernate, but that's not really the focus here. Okay, and I just have a test application, which is pretty straightforward. It just displays my data from my database. Okay, just prints out first name, last name, and phone name, and business phone. Okay, so I'm just gonna run this. This is not a graphical user interface, but this is just to test if I'm getting the data correctly. Okay, so I got my data from my database. That's working. So now we're gonna develop the graphical user interface. Okay, let's make a new project. New project. Visual Basic. Yes. I'm actually a C# developer, just as a disclaimer. But, okay, so if I do something wrong, it's not my fault. But if I do something right, it's all because of me. Okay, so let's just call it addressbook.gui. Alright, so here we go. Okay, let's put some controls. We have a list box here. As you notice, since some version, I think 2005, they changed the layout of Visual Studio. It no longer had those little dots. It's not a grid layout anymore, but it's like, you know, snaps to like auto align. You know, if you do like PowerPoint and all that, it's like I can align stuff. Okay. Label, okay, another label here, text box here, okay, text box here, and text box here. Okay, so if you're kind of OC like me, so you can spend 30 minutes doing this. No, let's not do that. Okay. Okay, I need to refer to my other libraries. So I need to refer to my model. Okay, I'll be referring to these other projects. I can use the code there. And I need to actually refer one more thing. This is a dependency of the NHibernate, so it's not strictly needed, but it's just something that NHibernate uses. Anyway, okay, so here. Okay, let's put okay. Double click, form load. Okay, so it's kind of like VB, right? VB6. Okay, but actually, unlike VB6, you can actually make your own. You can actually add several events to your form. So I can do like this, because VB6 actually does some association with the events based on the name, like form1 load, like that. But in the VB.NET, that's not